a player like Matt Brash might be as good or better candidate to win that award than Julio Rodriguez, depending on when each player gets the opportunity. What if Matt Brash makes the club out of spring training and he's in the bullpen and he just dominates? And has a really good, he's going to get a bunch of, he's going to be like Devin Williams in Milwaukee a couple of years ago. Maybe a guy like Mike Baumann in Baltimore, Connor Siebold in Boston. Detroit has a couple of arms that are ready that could come up in some role and pitch well and garner such attention. Joey Wentz, Alex Fado, Peter Solomon in Houston, Corey Lee even could factor in being a catcher. Kyle Isbell in Kansas City, Jordan Blasvich in Minnesota could fall in this category as well. I don't know that George Kirby is going to get the kind of innings to be a favorite. But again, some of this comes from like we just talked about Matt Brash. What if Matt Brash is in the bullpen all year? What's the max number of innings he probably gets? 75? Like 80 at the very most, and it's probably more like 60 to 70. And George Kirby could come up in June and get, 16 starts and throw 115 innings, and we're sitting here talking about him not getting the innings to be a favorite. It's ridiculous. But that is how this award has been voted on, for at least my entire lifetime, most of its existence. So it may depend on how good Kirby is in the relatively limited number of innings that he actually gets once he gets to the show. Those are the unknowns. We don't know when Julio Rodriguez is going to hit the big leagues. We don't know when George Kirby is going to hit the big leagues. We don't know exactly the role that Matt Brash is going to play at the big league level. I don't know that Matt Brash is going to spend a lot of time in the minors this year. It might be a bit of a waste. I mean, they might keep him. They might start him in the minors in the rotation, and then when they decide, hey, George Kirby's far enough along, a month, 2 months, George Kirby's far enough along, Brandon Williamson is far enough along, our current starting rotation is in pretty good shape, Nick Margavicius is healthy, I don't know that we're going to need Matt Brash in the rotation this year, and we could really use him in the bullpen. Let's just call him up, and he spends most of the year in the bullpen. I could absolutely see that kind of a thing happening, giving Matt Brash a legitimate chance. But when Kirby comes up, when Williamson comes up, how much time they actually get really depends. It really depends. Are there injuries? Are they legitimately? You're not calling up George Kirby just because you think he's ready, unless you think he's better than one of your starters. You're not going to purposely make the team worse because you want to get a prospect to the big leagues. 2022 is different than 2019, 2020, and even 2021. You are trying to win. You're not going to give up wins if you think replacing Chris Flexen with George Kirby actually makes your team worse. Now, long term, nobody believes that's the case, but short term, absolutely possible. Chris Flexen is a major league performer. We know Kirby has way more upside. Is Kirby ready to go out there and be a 2.5, 3-win starter from the get-go? That we do not know. I think Rodriguez and Brash are probably the best bets for the Mariners. I put Williamson up there with Kirby because he might prove to be ready before Kirby, and certainly workload is in his favor. Williamson was very steady and very good last year, and there's still some upside left. Big 6'6", 215-pound guy. It was mostly 91 to 94, but there are a lot of folks that I talk to that seem to think that the action on his fastball and the fact that he probably gets to a point ultimately where he's sitting 93 plus and touching 95 more often is a thing. That's a pretty good package of tools for a left-hander, with a decent slider that improved a lot last year, a decent changeup that improved a lot last year, and a curveball that's probably already major league quality. So we'll see how Williamson ends up in that conversation as well. I think Rodriguez is probably among the top 5 or 6 candidates as we sit here in January, but I'm still not convinced yet that he belongs in the majors before, I don't know, late May. Again, it's January. He just turned 21 years old. He's played 47 games. I'm sounding like a broken record, but I will pound this until everybody understands where I'm coming from. Just turned 21. He's played 47 whole games above advanced A-ball. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's like players can't do that, or it would be egregious if Rodriguez. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's hard to believe that he's ready right now. And as I mentioned before, what he does in Peoria in March will not change my mind. Small sample, only partially against major league or high quality arms. I'm not basing Rodriguez's immediate future on 100 plate appearances in spring training, where pitchers of all calibers, they treat it as experimental ground most of the time anyway. It's rather preposterous that there's still folks out there who think spring performances make that big of a difference. They don't. They shouldn't. It's ridiculous. Again, that doesn't mean Rodriguez is not going to start the season at the big league level, because I don't know the Mariners' plans. I also think it would be malpractice with Julio Rodriguez to pull the Evan White with him. Hey, if you sign this deal, you're going to start the year. I think that would be malpractice with a 21-year-old kid who might be the franchise's best player since Alex Rodriguez left. You can't do that. You can't toy with the development of such a young player. Evan White was a little bit different. He was older, had a lot more experience, went to college, all that good stuff. Rodriguez is a little bit different. But it is conceivable, however, that Rodriguez gets, 400, 450 plate appearances, maybe 500 even, and is some kind of a front runner in the Rookie of the Year race. Wouldn't surprise anyone, really. Certainly wouldn't surprise me. Hey, it's Jason Churchill. To get the full episode, as well as every other episode of the podcast, past and future, subscribe for as little as $5 per month by going to bit.ly/getthepod. That's bit.ly/getthepod, all one word. A link you can also find on my Twitter profile. Hey, thanks for checking out Baseball Things.